Practice Test 2. IELTS Practice Listening Test. You will hear 4 different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. You will have time to read the instructions and questions, and you have time to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now turn to part 1 in your question booklet. Part 1. You will hear a conversation between a customer and an employee of a charity organisation. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, Bite Cycle. How can I help you?
Oh, hi, good morning. I saw your advert in my local newspaper saying that you help people with recycling old electronic equipment. So I thought I'd call. I have an old computer that I don't use now. Do you do recycling of old computers?
Oh, yes, we do. But have you checked our website? That's got all the details you need.
Well, I haven't got internet access at the moment because I'm moving house.
Oh, okay. Well, what would you like to know? You say you have a computer or something to recycle? Can you tell me something about it? Is it a desktop or a laptop or what?
Yes, well, I want it to be useful to someone else. It's a 5-year-old home office system with a printer and an operating system and basic office software installed. It's still in working order, but I've just bought a laptop, so I don't need a desktop system anymore. I've got some other old office equipment too, if you're interested. A fax and a shredder.
Is it a Windows computer or an Apple? And any idea what sort of processor it's got in it?
Well, it's a Windows machine running Windows 7, but I don't know what sort of processor it's got. I'm not very technical, I'm afraid. I just know how to use it.
Right, well, we'll take the computer system and the printer, but not the shredder. We don't get much call for those these days. Most people use commercial shredding services. Oh, and we'll take the fax machine too.
Good. They're not too old then?
Well, we used to take items up to 6 or even 7 years old, but we're finding anything older than about 5 years is no use to us. Those systems are just not powerful enough for today's software.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Okay. Can I ask whether you pick up the items or I have to deliver it to you?
Well, that depends on whether you live outside a 10-kilometer radius or distance from the shop. If you do, we can usually pick up if you can't deliver to us, but there is a small fee of $12.50 for that, just to cover transport costs.
Oh, I'm not sure. Where are you exactly?
We're on the Western Valley Road, number 786, opposite the shopping mall. There's a small hotel right next door, the Gateway Hotel it's called.
Oh, Western Valley Road. That's not too far. I could drop it off myself. Can I ask what happens to the equipment?
Well, actually, we're a not-for-profit, that is, a charitable organisation. So our aim is to provide equipment to poor families. Most of those are in the local areas, but we do also send computers overseas. Oh, and sometimes, with the more modern and serviceable hardware, we donate items to other charities. Most of them are looking for any way they can find to cut costs, as you can imagine.
Oh, so do you sell the equipment?
Well, not exactly. Mostly we provide it at no charge, but if we spend time reconditioning it, we do ask for a small payment. That's usually for slightly newer equipment, and it's between $30 and $50 for a full system. That money just covers our operating expenses because government grants don't go very far.
Oh well, thanks for all that info. It's a great idea to make use of this stuff. I really didn't want to just throw it away. I'll drop it in at the shop tomorrow.
Right you are. We'll see you then.
That is the end of part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 2. Part 2. You will hear the chairperson of a community centre giving a report to other members about proposed changes to the community centre building. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 and 12. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 and 12.
Well, good evening everyone, and thanks for coming to this meeting. I'm Janine Wells, the committee chair. We have 1 or 2 new members and some overseas guests here tonight, so I'll just explain a few basic points before we get started. As most of you know, we are one of the oldest community groups in the city, but we've only been using this building as a community centre for 5 years now, at a very low rent. We thank our sponsors and benefactors, the Cranbrook Manufacturing Company, for their generosity in letting us use their building. But now that we're established, our needs have grown. The director of Cranbrook Manufacturing has agreed to help us to redevelop this building, and the site in general, and that is what we are here to discuss. Our secretary, Brenda Jeffries, and I are going to present, with the help of some floor plans and diagrams, our initial ideas on how we might add to and change the building and the site. I must emphasise that these plans are just a proposal based on our own design at this stage, so we will be seeking your input at the end of the presentation. So firstly, have a look at the 2 plans. You'll see that the first one is the existing site, and the plan below shows the proposed changes. Over to you, Brenda.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 13 to 20. Listen carefully and answer questions 13 to 20.
Right, thanks Janine. Well, you can see that right now we're in the largest of our two main spaces, the main hall, which we use for a variety of functions. We've been feeling for some time that this space badly needs a performance area, and so we're going to build a stage with professional lighting at the other end of this room. There will be curtains all around the edges of the hall. Now, do you see the 3 rooms behind me? They're currently full of all kinds of things we don't need, so we're going to have a clear out and convert 2 of the rooms into a dressing room for the performers. They will be able to move about behind the curtains at the edge of the hall, and we'll keep one of the storage rooms. That's going to be food storage. Is that right, Janine?
Well, no. I think that hasn't been decided yet.
Okay. Well, let's carry on. Now, as you can see, there are 2 doors just to my left, leading outside into the courtyard. We hardly ever use it, so I'm pleased to say that finally the parents group has got its wish and this space is to be used as a recreation area by the little ones. There's going to be a shade cloth over it for sun protection. So it'll be open to the weather, but a safe play environment. Now then, some of the more handy of our members have been asking for a place to carry out their woodwork and minor repairs, and so on. So let's turn to our other large space, the Boyd room. If you look at the existing plan, you'll see there are 2 general storerooms at the back of it. Well, the woodworkers are going to take over the Boyd room, and the storerooms will be converted into secure lock-up storage for some of the expensive machinery and tools that they have been buying. Now, I've been asked what's happening to the office. It's not very visible to visitors at the moment. You see, being just to the left of the entrance door, where we are now, might seem to be a good spot, but you have to go around the corner to get to the office doorway. So, the 3 admin staff are moving to that larger space, opposite where the office is now, to the right of the main entrance. It has doors which open onto the hallway, so it's more welcoming, and we've enlarged the small storage which opens into the new office, to turn it into non-perishable food storage, and office supplies, of course. Yes, indeed. We can't wait to get started. Now, I think that's everything. Oh, just one more thing. The brick outside wall to the courtyard, that is the new play area, is going to be demolished, and a steel fence put in instead, which will allow air and light through, but it will be very strong and secure, so don't worry about it.
Well, thanks, Brenda. Now, are there any questions?
Yes, I'd just like to ask what's going to happen to the alarm system. Is it going to be replaced?
That is the end of part 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 3. Part 3. You will hear a conversation about education and new reading technology. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our 3rd tutorial meeting in this course. Let's get started, shall we? Now, this week we begin our series of short presentations on new issues in education. And I believe our presenters are Alexandra and Michael, is that correct? And your topic is?
Thanks. We were asked to look at the issues around the impact of new technologies on children's learning. Well, the children we'll be teaching will obviously grow up with new technology, even more than we have ourselves. We're talking mainly about computers, tablets, electronic readers or e-readers, and mobile phones. So our specific topic is really, how much will these devices affect what they read and how they read, and will they in fact help them to learn more effectively and more quickly how to read?
So we're going to start by asking how many of you still prefer to read books, novels or non-fiction books, in a paper format. Can you raise your hands? And how many of you prefer to read books on a screen, that is your computer or electronic reader or your mobile phone? Can you raise your hands? That's interesting. I was expecting most of you to say you prefer reading books on paper, but I'd say it's inconclusive. There's hardly any difference, in fact. But listen to this point. The biggest online electronic bookseller now claims that it sells 1.5 times more electronic books, or e-books, than it does paper books. So you might think that as more and more people buy electronic readers, people on average will read more.
But that's not necessarily the case. A study done in 2012 in the United States found that about 50% of young Americans aged 18 to 24 read no books at all. Similar figures exist for several European nations. So I think that might tell us that the increase in book purchases is coming from people who were already frequent readers of printed books. It's just that they are buying more books in this new format than they used to.
Yes, so the question is, will the use of electronic books in educational settings encourage children to take up reading? And what role do parents have in this?
From what we've read, particularly from Ronald Kulik, it's difficult to get hard evidence on this. The thing is that the rate of change with new devices and reading platforms is so rapid. It's costly, it takes time to set up good research, and it needs to be carried out over months, if not years. And by the time it's completed, the technology itself has already moved on. Some minor factors include the cost of supplying devices for controlled studies and the difficulty of isolating the effect of one particular device, because many children have several different ways of accessing reading material.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Okay, so Alexandra has already mentioned the researcher Ronald Kulik. Now he actually did a controlled study on the effects of particular devices. He supplied low-cost basic e-readers to 80 families and trained the parents in how to operate them. He then monitored the number of requests from 5-year-old children for paired reading sessions with their parents.
It was interesting because he found there were more requests from children for electronic book reading than for paper reading. And of course the children wanted to control the page turning. So that's a positive sign, although it must be said that the effect seemed to diminish towards the end of the study.
Kulik's research was with basic, simple devices. And you might think that more sophisticated devices with pictures or animations would be more effective in developing reading, right? Well, Healy and Cuban used such devices in a small-scale study again with parental involvement. They measured the gains in reading skills of 7-year-olds over a 6-month period compared to a similar paper reading control group.
And interestingly, they found no significant improvement. In fact, they found the children were more interested in the device itself than in the content of the reading. A lot of the interaction was about controlling the device, and there were more disagreements between children and parents.
But there has been some interesting research on the effectiveness of electronic voices combined with reading. This has been done in Sweden by Linda Eriksson. She used quite sophisticated e-reader software with sound, but she avoided distracting pictures or animations. Instead, they highlighted any difficult words, that is, difficult for the 7 to 9 year age group. Then when the child touched the word on the screen, an electronic voice pronounced the word and gave it a short meaning.
Yeah, and the results of this were quite promising, with some noticeable gains in vocabulary recognition after 3 months.
Okay, Alexandra and Michael, we're up to time now, so thanks for a well-researched mini presentation. Now, for next week's presentation, one topic would be where some control over the reading content is imposed. I mean, where all the children are reading the same material in a school reading program. One thing that computers are very good at is measuring and counting and evaluating how children in the same group progress through the same material. So please see what you can find on that area. Another topic would be focusing on the teachers themselves. Do they have the level of technical knowledge and content knowledge to make the best uses of reading technology? Do their education courses and training provide this? All right, now, do we have any volunteers for next week's presentation? Mohammed and Jeff?
That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to part 4. Part 4. You will hear a talk about a new way of dealing with the problem of homelessness in cities. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hello, and thanks for inviting me here today. As you know, my topic is the growing problem of homelessness in our major cities, and today I'm going to focus on some of the more innovative solutions being proposed to overcome it. Government departments are, of course, aware of this crisis, and it's no exaggeration to call it a crisis when you consider the thousands who live without basic facilities on the streets of our cities. But they aren't the front line, so charities are increasingly suggesting the use of small, simple, self-contained housing units, which can even be portable, so they can quickly be installed where they're needed. One innovative solution is the use of shipping containers. Now, you're all familiar with these. You see them every day if you use the roads. It seems that converted shipping containers offer a quality of housing that is comparable to other low-cost solutions. The big drawcard for organisations with urgent needs is that they can be put up in no time at all, as we've seen from successful overseas installations. Now you're probably thinking, where on earth would they use converted shipping containers? Well, everywhere, it seems. For example, London, one charity organisation has 200 units already installed and 100 more in the planning stage. In another city, Brighton, the City of Brighton Housing Trust hopes to alleviate its housing problem with a new development built from modified shipping containers. Brighton has comparatively low wages, which results in housing being quite unaffordable for those on the lower rungs of the social ladder. So, their solution was a block of apartments constructed from 40-foot shipping containers stacked 6 high and 6 across, so that's 36 altogether, with access via stairwells and a deck at the front. Containers are fitted out with the basics such as kitchen, bathroom, and studio-style living space with shelving and closets. They're not designed as permanent housing, but rather they provide transitional housing as residents look for jobs and homes of their own. So the obvious question is, how can you turn a shipping container into a living space? Well, you can turn them into almost anything actually. Do you know that there are over 300 million unused, empty containers at ports all around the world? And they can be bought new for only about $6,000, but half that, so about $3,000, for used ones. They've been used for all kinds of purposes. For example, one of the biggest open-air shopping malls in Europe is made from them. Then there are hotels, medical consulting rooms, artist studios, exhibition spaces, and even bank storage vaults. So, getting back to basic accommodation, the advantage is that containers are all made to standard measurements, so designing the interior and fitments is very simple, and they are very easy to transport. That's what the original purpose of them was, after all. And they are so easy to stack, as many as 12 on top of each other. The basic fitting can all be done in the same location, and most of the factories for this are in China, with low construction costs. Transporting them can also be done by ship and by rail, of course. Then, once they arrive at the site for placement, all that's required is a concrete base and they can be stacked on top of each other. Let's turn to the services. I mean pipes for electricity, water, waste removal, and so on. All these have to be connected to the exterior, but the internal pipes and cables are all standard sizes and fittings. They're all fitted in advance, so all that has to be done is to make sure the site is ready with all utilities provided. One thing which planners have to be careful about is temperature control. Consider locations with quite a variation in temperature, let's say as low as -5 centigrade in winter and up to 35 in summer. So that's a 40-degree variation to deal with. To handle that, you have to specify the amount of insulation and possibly some form of air conditioning. These containers start out with bare metal walls, so insulation is a key factor in making them livable. Another objection people might raise is a possible noise problem. I mean, they are made of metal, so you might expect that sound would travel easily between them, and that wouldn't be a very good private living or studying environment. Well, you'd be surprised actually. They can be made more soundproof than traditional brick accommodation. People say, and tests can show this, that the amount of sound disturbance can be less than in most hotels. That depends on the degree of insulation and the kind of soft furnishings used inside, and also on the amount of space left between each unit in the stack. So it all sounds feasible. All a local government needs is suitable open space to place them in. Water, electricity, and sewerage systems can also be provided above ground. You may also be wondering about the actual costings per unit. Well, it all depends on how the providers choose to fit them out. The quality of the interior fittings is really the main variable here. That includes systems like the type of flooring, the choice of fixed furniture such as beds, the material used for cupboards, and so on. Now I have some pictures here, so if you'd just like to take a look, we can move on to questions after that.
That is the end of part 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.